The Nile River was the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, the singular geographic feature that made civilization possible in the midst of the world's harshest desert. Without the Nile's annual flood bringing fertile silt to renew the soil, without its waters providing irrigation for crops and drinking water for people and animals, Egypt would have been nothing but barren sand, stretching from horizon to horizon to horizon. The Egyptians understood this fundamental dependence, and they worshipped the Nile itself as divine, along with the various gods who controlled its waters and the creatures who lived within its depths. Among these river deities, none was more feared and revered than Sobek, the crocodile-headed god who embodied both the terrifying danger and the life-giving fertility of the Nile. Sobek represented the primal power of nature in its most raw and uncontrolled form, the force that could nurture life or destroy it with equal ease, depending on whether humanity approached with proper respect and reverence. To the ancient Egyptians, crocodiles were not simply dangerous animals to be avoided, but sacred manifestations of divine power that demanded worship and offerings. Crocodiles were apex predators in the Nile ecosystem, massive reptiles capable of growing over 15 feet long and weighing more than a ton, with jaws powerful enough to crush bone and pull full-grown cattle beneath the water's surface. Egyptian farmers, fishermen, and children playing along the riverbanks lived with a constant awareness that crocodiles lurked in the murky waters, invisible until the moment they struck with terrifying speed and overwhelming force. Death by crocodile was common enough that Egyptians developed elaborate rituals and prayers specifically to protect against this danger. If you're fascinated by how ancient Egyptians understood and worshipped the powerful forces of nature around them, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support enables us to continue exploring the rich mythology of Egypt and other ancient civilizations, bringing these incredible stories to life through careful research and engaging presentation. We have many more Egyptian deities to discover, each revealing different aspects of how this remarkable culture understood the divine. Yet despite their danger, or perhaps because of it, crocodiles were also seen as protectors and symbols of royal power. Sobek's strength and ferocity made him an ideal divine guardian, and pharaohs invoked his name when going into battle, asking the crocodile god to lend them his unstoppable aggression and deadly prowess. Military leaders wore amulets depicting Sobek, believing the god would make them as fearsome to their enemies as the crocodile was to its prey, turning them into apex predators on the battlefield just as the crocodile ruled the river. The mythology of Sobek's origins varies across different periods and regions of Egypt, reflecting the local variations common in Egyptian religion. In some traditions, Sobek was said to be the son of Neith, the ancient creator goddess of warfare and weaving who was worshipped from the earliest dynasties. Neith created Sobek from the primordial waters, forming him from the Nile itself so that he would be forever connected to the river and serve as its guardian and embodiment. In this version, Sobek's role was to protect the waters and ensure they flowed properly to bring life to the land. Other myths connected Sobek more directly to Ra, the sun god, describing how Sobek helped Ra during his nightly journey through the underworld. According to these stories, when Ra's solar barque sailed through the dark waters of the Dort, Sobek swam alongside or beneath the boat, using his powerful jaws and fearsome presence to drive away the serpent, Apophis, and other chaos creatures that sought to prevent the sun's rebirth each morning. In this capacity, Sobek was a cosmic guardian whose vigilance ensured that the fundamental cycles of nature continued uninterrupted. The association between Sobek and the annual flooding of the Nile was perhaps his most important function in Egyptian religious thought. The flood, called the inundation, occurred each year when summer rains in the Ethiopian highlands swelled the Nile's tributaries and sent a massive surge of water flowing north through Egypt. This flood was essential for agriculture, depositing rich silt on the fields and providing moisture for the coming growing season. Without the flood, crops would fail and famine would follow, making the inundation literally a matter of life and death. Sobek was believed to control the flooding, deciding through his divine will whether the inundation would be abundant or meager, whether it would come at the right time or arrive too early or late and damage crops. Priests of Sobek performed elaborate rituals throughout the year to ensure the god's favor, offering prayers, sacrifices, and gifts to convince him to send the perfect flood that would bring prosperity without causing destructive flooding that could wash away homes and drown livestock. The success or failure of these rituals was judged by the actual height and timing of the annual flood. The city of Crocodilopolis, called Shedit in ancient Egyptian, became the primary cult center for Sobek worship. Located in the Fayum region, where the Nile created a large lake rich with crocodiles. This city housed a massive temple complex dedicated to Sobek, where priests raised sacred crocodiles in special pools, feeding them choice meats and adorning them with gold jewelry and precious stones. The most sacred crocodile, considered to be a living manifestation of Sobek himself, was pampered like royalty and mourned like a pharaoh when it died, then mummified with great ceremony and buried in special crocodile cemeteries. Greek and Roman visitors to Egypt were amazed and sometimes horrified by the Egyptian reverence for crocodiles. The historian Herodotus describes seeing priests hand-feed sacred crocodiles, opening their jaws to clean their teeth, and even placing gold earrings and bracelets on the massive reptiles. Strabo, another ancient writer, watched priests lure a sacred crocodile from its pool with food, then had the opportunity to touch the animal's back, an experience he found both terrifying and strangely moving as he confronted divinity in such a primal and dangerous form. The practice of mummifying crocodiles was extensive, and archaeological excavations have uncovered enormous numbers of crocodile mummies, ranging from tiny hatchlings to massive adults over 15 feet long. These mummies were created both as offerings to Sobek and as a way to preserve sacred crocodiles that had died, ensuring their continued existence in the afterlife where they could serve Sobek eternally. The sheer number of crocodile mummies discovered suggests that crocodile breeding and mummification became a significant industry in certain Egyptian cities during the later periods. Sobek's temples were architectural marvels designed to honor the god's connection to water and fertility. They typically included sacred pools where live crocodiles were kept and where ritual bathing and purification ceremonies took place. The pools were fed by channels connected to the Nile itself, ensuring that the temple waters shared the sacred nature of the great river. Priests would perform daily rituals at these pools, singing hymns to Sobek and making offerings of food that would be fed to the sacred crocodiles while prayers were recited. The iconography of Sobek emphasized his dual nature as both dangerous predator and protective guardian. In temple reliefs and paintings, he was often shown with a crocodile head on a powerful human body, wearing the crown with ram horns and solar disk that connected him to Ra and emphasized his role in cosmic order. Sometimes he appeared fully as a crocodile but with divine attributes like the Ankh symbol of life or the Wa scepter of power held in his forelimbs. Bizarre images that nevertheless conveyed his divine status clearly. Sobek's association with fertility extended beyond the agricultural abundance brought by the flood to include human fertility and sexuality. Women seeking to become pregnant would pray to Sobek and make offerings at his temples, and amulets depicting the god were worn as fertility charms. The connection between water, fertility, and reproduction was fundamental to Egyptian thought, and Sobek, as the embodiment of the Nile's fertile power, naturally became associated with all forms of generation and increase, from the multiplication of crops to the birth of children. The cult of Sobek reached its peak during the Middle Kingdom and continued strongly through the Ptolemaic period when Greek rulers of Egypt enthusiastically supported Sobek worship. Several pharaohs took Sobek as part of their throne names, calling themselves things like Sobkhotep, meaning Sobek is satisfied, indicating their devotion to the god and their desire to be associated with his power. These royal names functioned as both prayer and propaganda, suggesting that the pharaoh enjoyed Sobek's favor and therefore the blessing of successful floods and abundant harvests. In addition to his roles concerning water and fertility, Sobek was invoked for protection against the very danger that crocodiles themselves represented. This paradoxical function, worshipping the crocodile god to be protected from crocodiles, made perfect sense within Egyptian religious logic. If Sobek was pleased with proper worship and offerings, he would control the crocodiles and keep them from attacking humans. But if Sobek was neglected or offended, He might send crocodiles to punish the impious, or simply withdraw his protection and allow the natural predatory behavior of crocodiles to claim victims. Fishermen working the Nile would say prayers to Sobek before casting their nets, asking the god to fill their catch while protecting them from crocodile attack. These prayers often included promises of offerings from the day's catch, a portion of fish that would be brought to Sobek's temple or left at the river's edge as tribute. The relationship between the fishermen and Sobek was transactional but also deeply spiritual, a recognition that their livelihood depended on the god's continued goodwill and that they operated in Sobek's domain by his permission. Magical spells invoking Sobek's name appear throughout Egyptian magical papyri, used for purposes ranging from protection against crocodiles to cursing enemies to ensuring success in legal disputes. The logic behind these varied uses stemmed from Sobek's fundamental nature as an overwhelming force that could not be resisted once unleashed. Just as nothing could escape a crocodile's jaws once they clamped shut, so magic invoking Sobek's power was believed to be inescapable and unstoppable, making him an ideal deity to call upon when certainty and overwhelming force were desired. The darker aspects of Sobek's mythology reflected the genuine danger that crocodiles posed and the Egyptian understanding that nature was not inherently benevolent. Some myths portrayed Sobek as aggressive and difficult to control, a god whose power had to be constantly placated and managed rather than simply celebrated. In the Osiris myth, Set sometimes took the form of a crocodile, and in some versions Sobek was associated with or conflated with Set, the god of chaos and violence. Though this association was controversial and rejected by Sobek's devoted worshippers, the medical texts of ancient Egypt include detailed instructions for treating crocodile bites and attacks, acknowledging the reality that Sobek's favor did not always prevent such incidents. These treatments combined practical wound care with magical spells calling on various gods, including Sobek himself, to heal the injury and prevent infection. The texts reveal a pragmatic approach that did not see religious faith and medical treatment as contradictory, but rather as complementary aspects of dealing with injury and illness. Environmental changes over the millennia have dramatically reduced crocodile populations in Egypt, and today Nile crocodiles are extinct in Egypt proper, though they still inhabit more southern reaches of the Nile in Sudan and other African countries. In ancient times, however, crocodiles were abundant throughout the Egyptian Nile, making the daily reality of Sobek's presence impossible to ignore. Modern Egyptians have largely forgotten Sobek, but the ancient relationship between Egyptians and the crocodiles in their midst shaped religious practice and daily life for thousands of years. The artistic representations of Sobek found in temples and tombs demonstrate the sophisticated Egyptian ability to combine realistic observation of nature with symbolic religious meaning. The crocodiles depicted in Egyptian art are anatomically accurate, showing that artists studied real crocodiles carefully, yet these same images are imbued with divine attributes and placed in mythological contexts that transcend mere natural history. This combination of empirical observation and religious interpretation characterized Egyptian science and religion, which were not separate domains but integrated ways of understanding reality. Archaeological work at Sobek's temples and crocodile burial sites continues to reveal new information about how the cult functioned and evolved over time. Recent excavations have uncovered evidence of sophisticated crocodile breeding programs, specialized facilities for mummification, and extensive economic records showing the significant resources devoted to maintaining Sobek worship. These discoveries help modern scholars understand not just Egyptian religion but also ancient economics, animal husbandry practices, and the complex relationship between religious belief and practical life. The legacy of Sobek worship extends beyond ancient Egypt into modern understanding of how human cultures relate to dangerous wildlife. The Egyptian ability to maintain reverence for crocodiles despite their danger, to see divine power in a creature that could kill humans, represents a form of ecological wisdom often missing in modern attitudes that view dangerous animals as problems to be eliminated, rather than as worthy of respect and accommodation. Sobek worship reflected an acceptance that humans were not the only important species and that sharing the environment with powerful predators was both necessary and spiritually meaningful. In contemporary popular culture, Sobek appears in various books, games, and media focused on Egyptian mythology, though like many ancient deities, his portrayal often simplifies or distorts his actual religious significance. Modern depictions tend to emphasize the dangerous, monstrous aspects of a crocodile god while missing the nuances of his role as fertility bringer, cosmic guardian, and embodiment of the Nile's life-giving power. True appreciation for Sobek requires understanding the complete picture of this complex deity who represented both the terror and the blessing of the natural world. The worship of Sobek teaches us that ancient Egyptians did not separate the dangerous from the sacred, the fearsome from the holy. They understood that the same river that brought life through its floods could drown the careless, that the same sun that ripened crops could kill with heat, and that the same crocodile-infested waters that provided fish and irrigation could claim lives with terrifying suddenness. Sobek embodied this duality, and worshipping him meant accepting and honoring the full reality of nature's power rather than wishfully imagining a tamed and harmless world. This exploration of Sobek, the crocodile god, represents a collaboration between human research and artificial intelligence capabilities, combining traditional scholarship about Egyptian religion with modern presentation techniques to make these ancient stories accessible and engaging. We hope this journey into understanding Sobek has given you a deeper appreciation for the complexity of Egyptian religious thought and the sophisticated ways this ancient culture understood their relationship with the natural world. You can find links in the description to the tools and resources we use to create this content, along with books and products that can further your exploration of Egyptian mythology and the fascinating deities who shaped one of history's greatest civilizations.